Hello Nidorinas and Nidorinos, I'm KingNido, and today it is the Kitakami Rogues going up against the Pastoria Hydros, and as they look at their opening hands for this best of 3 series, let's have a look at this tale of the tape between these two sides, where last season the Rogues were able to take down the Hydros with a clean sweep, and they want to repeat that here again today because they are currently on the bottom of the leaderboard, whereas the Hydros are sitting just inside that top 5 and they do not want to drop out. So with that said, let us know in the comments below who you think is going to win this matchup. Will it be the Darkness decks? Will it be the Water decks? Let's go!
3, 2, 1, go!
And going first, having flipped heads, it is that Sea Guardians deck, as they do put the Fiona in the active spot. It is the Stunky from the Galactic Admin deck of the Rogues in their active spot, but they both only have the one active Pokemon at the moment, but that is surely about to change very quickly, as the Prinplup is pulled for the Hydros, but they've got 2 Professor's Research. They can only use 1 because it is a support card, but there's the Piplup plus the Giant Cape, and already they have a second basic Pokemon that they can put onto the bench. There isn't much else they can do unless they want to put down that Giant Cape, but they choose to hold on to it for now, sending it over to the Rogues, who pull their second Drapion card, the other one already being in hand, but they just quickly get an energy onto the Stunky. They've also got the Team Rocket Grunts and the Giant Cape plus one of their 2 Toxicroak, as they get that 10 damage onto the Fiona here, and it comes back over to the Hydros, who get their second Prinplup, but they're going to play that second Professor's Research, quickly thinning this deck. They get a Buizel and that second Fiona as well. The Buizel immediately going on the bench as they have that Floatzel in hand, and they're going to move one of those Prinplups surely onto the Piplup, but no, they're going to take their time. They get a first energy of the 2 required onto the Fiona. It does do 40 damage, but it immediately puts the opposing Pokemon to sleep, as a second Team Rocket Grunt is pulled for this Galactic Admin deck, and they play it immediately. They want to get that single energy off the Fiona, but unfortunately they get the Tails, so their plans to halter the Hydros are thwarted for the time being, but they get a second energy onto the Stunky. They still don't actually have a second basic Pokemon in hand, whereas the Hydros are filling up this bench very quickly, and they have the Empoleon as well, who does require 3 energy to do that 80 damage, but it can get 30 damage onto a bench Pokemon, as the Floatzel is online, and so is the Prinplup now being put onto that Piplup. And they contemplate playing that Irida, but they decide they want to wait. They will restore 40 health from any Pokemon with a water energy on them, but Fiona currently only has 20 damage, as already awake is the Stunky after taking its own 40 damage from the Fiona, and a Krogunk is pulled for the Rogues. Fantastic timing, because if they'd lost Stunky with no bench, they would have already lost this game 1 in this best of 3 series. And as we always say, regardless of the outcome of the first 2 matchups, we do go to a game 3 because that does count towards the leaderboard, as they do get ahead with this second Team Rocket Grunt, but unfortunately they only get 1, so Fiona loses 1 of its 2 energy, but it will require a second one to go back on the offensive, as Stunky gets the Giant Cape, taking its health up to 40 out of elimination range from the Fiona, getting another 10 damage there onto the Water type card. And it is the Manaphy as well now being pulled for the Hydros, and they still have that Empoleon in hand as well, as they get the 1 required energy onto the Floatzel, and now they're going to play that Irida. It will restore Fiona back to full strength. And they are going to retreat the Fiona as well, so that they can go with this Floatzel. It is from the promo set A, as that is still eligible in this A2 season for being drafted, and they are going to go with that Attack the Wound to take Stunky off of the board, leaving Krogunk to have to come into that active spot as the Hydros take the first point here in this series. And the second Stunky now being pulled for the Rogues, but they're more concerned with getting that Toxicroak online, who can go for the group beatdown. It does get a coin flip for every Pokemon on the side of the Rogues, so they've currently got 2. Each head will do 40 damage. They need both of them here. They get 1. They only get 1 though. It does 40 damage to the Floatzel. It will have 60 health remaining. They'll need to get 2 next time, but before that can happen, it does go back to the Hydros, and they do get the Pokeball, so they can get a basic Pokemon out of their deck. And having pulled that second Manaphy, they're going to start setting up the Prinplup here. There is currently no energy on the Fiona either, and as we mentioned, Empoleon does require 3 energy. This Attack the Wound will now only do 10 damage to Toxicroak. It will do the extra 60 if the Pokemon receiving the damage already has damage on it here, and the Rogues get their Professor's Research, playing that immediately. They get a Scroopy, but they also get the Pokeball, so they can get another basic Pokemon. They can get 4 coin flips with this group beatdown thanks to getting the Krogunk. That's immediately on the bench. The Skorupi's immediately on the bench. This could do 160 damage. They only require 50% of these coin flips. They only require 2 2B heads to take out this Floatzel. They get 1. They get 1. They get another one. They get 3. It's going to do 120 damage. If that had happened the first time they'd gone for Floatzel, it would have been wiped off the board immediately. But it is now a 1-point game each. They require another 2 to take the first game in this best of 3 series, as the Hydros move the Fion into the active spot, the second Weasel being pulled as well. And the Hydros need to think about how they may want to approach this from here. And they're clearly still focused on setting up that Empoleon, moving that second energy onto it. It does have 150 health as well. And they're thinking about using that giant cape. They're going to increase Empoleon's health by an extra 20, trying to make it capable of outlasting a hit from this Toxicroak, as the second Toxicroak has been pulled for the Rogues. This one with that Toxic, it can badly poison the opposing Pokemon, where it will do not just 10 damage per turn, but 20. But this group beatdown continues, trying to take this Fion off the board, and they get 1 heads. It is not enough to get the elimination of the Fion. This buys the Hydros a little bit more time to set up how they need to on the board, but it also affords the Kitakami Rogues an opportunity to maximize their damage in this matchup, because not just the points get counted towards the leaderboard, every bit of damage counts as well from all 3 games. And the Hydros thinking about how they want to approach this. They opt to get an energy onto that benched Fion, and they're thinking about if they want to move anything else onto their bench, but they opt against it, sending it over to the Rogues, who pull the Team Galactic Grunt, and they are going to play that immediately, trying to get another Stunky or Krogunk out of their deck, but they've already been pulled, so that is going to fail. They're trying to think about how they want to approach this. Drapion has 2 energy on it. Toxicroak has 2 energy on it. It only needs 2. Are they thinking? And they are. They're going to retreat this Toxicroak. They want to move the Drapion into the active spot. No, instead they're going with the Stunky. I guess that makes sense considering Drapion only had 2 of the 3 required energy on it, so it's really intriguing to see what the Rogues were thinking here. As a second Piplup is put onto the bench for the Hydros, they are going to move an energy onto that active Fion. This buys the Hydros a little bit of time. Have the Rogues made a mistake by not putting an energy onto the Drapion? But the Hydros as well, they've moved Empoleon into the active spot. No, not enough required energy on it, as the second Team Galactic Grunts has been pulled for the Rogues, but that would be pointless to play. They are going to go with the Scratch onto the Empoleon. They can use the Supporter, but it would be irrelevant. 10 damage done to the Empoleon here, as the Empoleon can now respond. It is the second Floatzel being pulled for the Hydros. That Weasel is in hand and the bench is full. The second Primplup coming online as well for the Hydros. Still only 1 point each between these 2 sides. And with this Aqua Jet, it gets to do 30 damage to that benched Drapion, taking it down to 90 health and wiping that Stunky off the board. The Hydros have taken the lead. Some interesting plays here early on by these 2 sides. Have they potentially made a few crucial errors? We will know in due time, as the Skuntank is pulled for the Rogues, but it is too little too late. The Cross Poison, this will be a 4 coin flip again as well, but if they can get at least 2, it will also poison the Empoleon. They get 1, they get 2, they get 3. They get 3 out of the 4 heads, 120 damage. If they'd gotten just 1 more, they would have wiped this Empoleon off the board, but regardless, they do leave it with that poisoning. The Irida has been pulled for the Hydros. They will surely want to play that now to restore the health of this Empoleon in the active spot, and so that it can keep on the offensive against this Drapion. Thinking about where they want to move this water energy. They're going to set up that benched Empoleon with its first of 3 required energy, and again they get to do 30 damage with this Aqua Jet to one of the benched Pokemon, choosing the Toxicroak with that group beatdown, leaving it with only 50 health remaining, as the Rocky Helmet has been pulled for the Rogues. They have an opportunity to wipe this Empoleon off the board and level the playing field. That is what they want to do. but instead they move that Toxicroak that has taken the damage with that group beatdown into the active spot. It needs to flip at least 2 heads to take out the Empoleon here. They get a tails. They get a heads. They get 2 heads. They are able to get the elimination, and they do level the playing field between these two sides. The next point is going to win game 1. Taking their time to think about this, the Hydros have moved the Fion into the active spot. They're hoping that they can put this Toxicroak to sleep. If they do, it won't be able to retreat either, so that is massive. This could be the deciding play. They go for the Water Pulse. This is going to leave 10 health remaining on the Toxicroak. That Rocky Helmet will do 20 damage. Back to the Fion. The Rogues need to flip their heads. They do flip their heads. They have the opportunity to wipe this Fion off the board and take game 1 in what has been a very close and potentially multiple error-filled game as well. They're thinking of putting an energy onto this benched Toxicroak, but they are going for the group beatdown. They only need to flip 1 of 3 heads here. They get 1 tails. They get the heads that they need, the only one they get and the only one required for them to win this game 1 in this best of 3 series between these two sides. But we will have a board reset and go into our game 2 with these newly selected decks between these two sides. The Rogues will be going first, and they are using the Galactic Boss deck this time up against the Ice Peak Arena. It is the Murkrow going in the active spot for the Rogues as their only basic Pokemon. It's the Regice for the Hydros with as their only basic Pokemon. Once again, both teams only drawing 1 basic Pokemon in their opening hand. We can see the Crobat and the 2 Honchkrows. They do draw the Rocky Helmet through the Rogues, plus they've got that Cyrus in hand. They put the Rocky Helmet onto the Murkrow. Now, Regice does require at least 2 energy to start doing damage, as the second Frostlass is pulled for the Hydros, but they play that Professor's Research, and they get the Snorunt plus the Giant Cape. That Snorunt is fantastic with that Frostlass already in hand. They do have a Mamoswine and a Piloswine. They still need a Swinub. Does this Ice Peak Arena deck, but they are going to move a Giant Cape onto the benched Snorunt instead of that Regice. Now, we did mention the Murkrow in the active spot plus those 2 Honchkrows, but the Honchkrows do require 2 energy to start doing damage as well. But with the Professor's Research of their own, they do pull the 2 Zubats from their deck, and they are going to put one of them onto the bench, and they're thinking about moving the Honchkrow, but they're starting to take their time with all the potential errors in that first game. They don't want to make too many more, but they do opt to go with that energy onto the Honchkrow now, knowing that that 60 damage from that Frost Smash of Regice would wipe out that Murkrow. It is the Irida being pulled for the Pastoria Hydros as they move their Frostlass on to that benched Snorunt, and here is the Frost Smash still going for the Honchkrow. 50 damage, sorry, not 60, and it does do that 20 recall to the Regice thanks to the Rocky Helmet as the Mighty Enna has been pulled for the Rogues, but they do not currently have a Poochyena in their hand, but the Skill Dive will do 50 damage in return, and they are opting to go for the Regice, bringing it down to 40, but Honchkrow will not be able to outlast a hit again from the Regice. As they do play the Irida as well, this Regice is going to get 40 health back, taking it back up to 80. They put the Rocky Helmet onto the Regice as well, and they can start setting up this benched Frostlass with its first of 2 required energy. And the Hydro is taking point 1 here in game 2, taking that Honchkrow off the board, but at the same time, they do have that 20 recoil damage from the Rocky Helmet onto the Regice. As Zubat is moved into the active spot, the Rogues need to pull a Golbat, but instead they pull the Mighty Enna. And Zubat can only do 20 damage to the Regice. It will get 20 recoil damage, and Regice is free to wipe this Zubat off the board. Easy target here, and this will be the second point for the Hydros as they pull their Frost Rotom as well, and they can start setting that up with its first of 2 required energy. But the Frost Smash, again, wiping out another member of this Galactic Boss deck. The Hydros want to take this to a game 3. The Rogues need an ultimate comeback here to finish this in game 2. And the Rogues Rogues able to play their Professor's Research, getting another 2 cards. They get the Poochyena, they get a Murkrow here. They are limited on their options, but both Poochyena and Murkrow have 60 health, so they can outlast a hit from the Regice. And for a moment there, I thought the Rogues were just going to end it there and take this to a game 3, but no, they go for the bite. They don't go for the retreat. They are willing to give up game 2 and take it to a game 3. Absolute reckless from the Darkness decks. They were clearly feeling very limited on what they can do, but the Hydros are not worried about attaching their energy. They're just going for the win, not dropping a single point here in game 2 as we take it to a game 3 decider between these two sides. This time going first, it is going to be the Rogues, as they have got that Endless Nightmare deck up against the Pacific Rim deck of the Pastoria Hydros. The Shroodles in hand plus the Spiritomb, but it is the Spiritomb going into the active spot, the Shroodle on the bench. And the Hydros with their Finneon in the active spot. They do actually have a second Finneon in hand, plus their own Professor's Research. The Rogues pulling the Rocky Helmet, play their Professor's Research, get in another 2 cards out of this deck. They get the second Cyrus and the Team Rocket Grunt. Now, there is a Professor's Research, plus those 2 Pokemon tools in hand for the Hydros as well, but the Rocky Helmet is put onto that Spiritomb. Again, no energy generated on that first turn, so the Hydros also pulling the Pokeball. They're going to get a basic Pokemon out of their deck first before they play that Professor's Research, and it is the Origin Form Palkia as they play their Professor's Research. And those 2 cards, this time the Lumineon and the Meryl, and the Lumineon only requires a single energy, but the Hydros are not permitted to evolve yet, so instead they put that Rocky Helmet onto the Finneon, and they are going to move the Meryl onto the bench, plus that Palkia, who does require 3 energy to start going on the offensive. It will do 60 damage, but with a coin flip, it could potentially do 120 as the Giant Cape is moved onto the Meryl, and there's that energy onto the Finneon with that Elegant Swim. But they opt to not go for it. It only does 10 damage, but they don't want that recoil damage from the Spiritomb, who also only requires 1 energy, and with this Swirling Disaster, it will do 10 damage to each of the members of the Hydros on the board. They're chipping away at each and every single one of them. Spiritomb having to contend with the Rocky Helmet of the Finneon as well, but the Azumarill has been pulled for the Hydros, immediately put on the Meryl, and there is the Lumineon coming online for the Hydros. Again, it only requires that 1 energy for that 50 damage waterfall, whereas Azumarill requires 2 energy, but there's that 50 damage onto the Spiritomb. They're willing to take that Rocky Helmet damage this time, as Spiritomb is limited on what it can do, but the Rogues do pull their Ekans with that Poison Sting, and they do have 2 Ekans in hand now. They are going to move the Poison Sting Ekans onto the bench as they think about playing their Team Rocket Grunt. They can use that Cyrus to drag out one of the benched Pokemon, and they're thinking about it here, but which one will they choose? They opt to go with that Palkia, dragging it into the active spot. They want to avoid the Rocky Helmet, and they're going to retreat the Spiritomb. They want to poison this Palkia here, which will do that passive damage, 10 between every turn between each player, as they need to pull the Arbok soon. But it is a second Azumarill being pulled for the Hydros. They get a first energy onto that Palkia, who is still feeling the effects of that poisoning, and there is the Arbok being pulled for the Rogues. And they do get a second energy onto this Ekans, moving the Arbok into the active spot. It still requires 1 more energy for that Venomous Fang. It does 70 damage, but by the time it comes back to the Rogues, Palkia will be weak enough and an easy target. And there's another 10 damage off of Palkia. It does require 2 energy to be able to retreat, so they could potentially do that and start going on the offensive with one of their 2 benched Pokemon. Thinking of whether or not they want to put the energy onto the Azumarill. They're taking their time. They're going to move the Finneon onto the bench, and they're going to put an energy on that. They're willing to give up the Palkia here. They're going to drop that first point. Palkia only has 70 health remaining. The Spiritomb, that second Spiritomb being pulled for the Rogues, but a 3rd energy onto the Arbok. It can go for this Venomous Fang and take out Palkia from this match, and the Rogues take point 1 here in game 3, taking that early lead as they hope to win this matchup. And the Hydros are going to move that Finneon into the active spot. Again, they've got the Lumineon on the bench as they pull their second Origin Form Palkia, and they do move that onto the bench. Again, it requires 3 energy, so they can start generating that now because the Lumineon doesn't require any additional energy. It can just start going on the offensive with this Waterfall. Darkrai that was pulled from the Rogues moved into that active spot, gets its first of its own 3 required energy, but the Cyrus now being played for the Rogues. They want to drag in that Palkia, but it hasn't taken any damage yet, so they can't do that. Instead, they're going to pull in that second Lumineon. They're going to get their second point here in Game 3, taking that big lead. The Hydro is still yet to take a point in this match, but that Rocky Helmet will do the 20 damage back to that Arbok before it gets taken off the board. But there is that second point for the Rogues. Now the Hydros really need to think about how they want to apply this. They do move that Lumineon back into the active spot. They pull the Pokeball. They are going to play that immediately, getting the Tentacle out of their deck. We're still yet to see a Tentacle get pulled here, but it is that Palkia getting a second energy. The Waterfall is going to take the Arbok off the board, and finally the Hydros have got a point here in Game 3. Now the Rogues need to think about what they want to move into the active spot, opting to go with that Spiritomb. They know it only has 10 health remaining, but this will buy them more time to start setting up that Darkrai, being 1 turn away from having enough required energy. And speaking of Darkrai, they do play the Pokeball to get that second Darkrai in hand. Second energy onto the Darkrai, requiring 1 more, but it's the Spiritomb moved into that final bench slot, and the Team Rocket Grunt now being played by the Rogues. They just need 1 heads, but unfortunately they get the tails, so that is not going to work here. And the Hydros have pulled the Irida, but all of their Pokemon are currently at full strength, so there's no point in trying to use that now, as we see the Palkia finally receiving its third energy. This Waterfall from the Lumineon can take out the Spiritomb. They're checking over the Darkrai to make sure that it can't take out the Lumineon, and they feel comfortable now to go with that Waterfall. It will wipe the Spiritomb off the board. This next point, we are down to a point match. Point game, I always get confused between those two, but regardless, the next point will win between the Rogues and the Hydros. Rogues moving the Darkrai into the active spot. It is the Pokeball being pulled. I'm not sure they've got any more basic Pokemon left in their deck, and no, they do not, but a good way to check. This Dark Void will put the Lumineon to sleep. They need it to stay asleep though. 60 damage. Lumineon will have 10 health remaining. It will be a coin flip for the Hydros. They need to flip heads. They get the tails. This is fantastic for the Rogues. There is nothing that the Hydros can do. They pull the Tentacruel. They have the Irida. It will only get Lumineon back up to 50 health. It needs at least 70. They're still going to play it. They're hoping that an error can potentially happen. And look at that, Azumarill had actually lost 10 health. But they get a 4th energy onto Palkia, but there's nothing they can do. They flip their heads. This is irrelevant. They still get a tails, and the Rogues with the Darkrai, this endless nightmare that has become over the Hydros, they will take the win, their first of the season. Lumineon wiped off the board, and the Rogues hold on. And this could be a huge confidence boost for them as they move up to 9th spot. And next round, they are going up against the Cinnabar Blazers. Whereas for the Hydros, they stay in the top 5, but they are going up against the Holon Allies next round. But until then, Nidorinos, thank you so much for watching. Let us know in the comments below what you thought the best card was. And if you enjoyed what you saw, please leave a like, share, subscribe, but more importantly, always remember, send thanks, and I'll see you when you see me.